Hey guys, I burnt myself out. The worst part about this is it's because I was doing something that I love. And as an artist, I don't really have any other hobbies, which I'm working on. I'm working on it, okay? But I've been considering learning to crochet or something with my hands that doesn't require like a ton of like brain power. If you have any ideas, I'm all ears. But for now, drawing is my only real hobby. It brings me so much joy and allows me to relax so much, at least as much as I can relax. But too much of anything can be bad for you. This brings us to June. For Pride Month, I had planned to draw my sun and moon characters who are gay and in love and very cute every single day. I was going to draw them every single day. Now, mind you, I haven't really done a full monthly challenge like this before. I mean, I did do I drew for like 70 days but it wasn't like a full-fledged drawing every day. It was just like I worked on something for 70 days, at least for like 10 minutes. I made a prompt list and everything for this challenge I was creating. I called the challenge Phases of the June. Phases of the Moon, but for June. First week went by very smoothly, and I think this is because I was planning ahead. I know that's kind of like cheating for a monthly challenge, but it was my monthly challenge, so I got to make the rules. But I planned ahead, sketched ahead, and that made every day a little bit easier. Then we got to the second week. It was a bit of a struggle because I wasn't planning ahead as much, but until day 13, things were going well. On day 13, though, a little peek behind the scenes, I had a procedure done. It wasn't a major thing, but it was enough to throw me out of the routine. And this procedure was planned, and I knew about it before June even started, so this was my main screw up. I didn't draw that day, and thus started the downfall of Phases of the June. I drew both day and 14 on the 14th. I was able to get day 15 and 16 done, barely. That's when I took a little break that I had only planned on being one day. But I realized I was dreading drawing every single day. I was officially burnt out. I made an announcement on day 19 by drawing day 20's prompt. No, that was not on purpose. I was just so out of it that I drew the 20th instead of the 19th on accident and didn't realize until I was done with it. And now we're here. It's the beginning of July as of working on this video. I haven't drawn in like 2 weeks, which is abnormal for me. If you don't draw for 2 weeks and you feel great about that, go off. But for me, this is like a big deal. Art is such a comfort for me, so I need to find a way to break out of this burnout. I thought, hell, might as well make some content out of figuring this out. As of recording this intro, I guess I lied. I have drawn one thing. This is a drawing for Nami, shown here, from One Piece's birthday. So, which was on the 3rd of July. Say happy birthday to Nami. Belated happy birthday. But I wanted to show it because it was really hard to get into it. Like, yeah, it looks okay. It looks fine. but I think it was a good first step of breaking through this art block. Now, I guess it's time to kick my ass into gear and get out of this art block so I can do what I love. Let's do it. I wanted to start this process by doing something easy for my brain. That's why I decided to go back to the roots of my art process. Luckily for me, I planned for this. I have a list I put in my sketchbook of things I like to draw. I did this just in case I was ever stuck for whatever reason, be it lack of focus, lack of inspiration, or in this case, burnout. I also decided to work in my sketchbook instead of digitally this time. When I work digitally, I can be a perfectionist, always undoing and resizing and fidgeting with color. But when I work in my sketchbook, and especially when I work with watercolor, I'm much looser. If I were to make a mistake with watercolor outside of my sketchbook, I'd just scrap the paper. But if I work inside my sketchbook, I'm forced to keep it and deal with it. And I think this is what I needed. I needed to have no fear of mistakes, only acceptance. The day I painted this, I had been on a walk earlier with my dog and saw some beautiful hydrangeas. Flowers are a more recent thing I like to draw, so I decided to use them as inspiration. Now, I didn't really end up painting hydrangeas. I started with that idea, but ended up just using the colors and freestyling. Something fun I like to do when using watercolor is not sketching. Again, this is a way to make me a bit looser with my art and not put so much pressure on myself. I knew I hadn't put a sketch down, so if it turned out looking like doo-doo, it wouldn't have been a big surprise. I did, having said that, make a few mistakes in this piece. First of all, I was hella impatient with the watercolor drying. I ended up smearing some of the brown when trying to add the final touches. I also forgot to grab any paper towels and I didn't want to get up again. Laziness wins. And this proved to be a problem when the watercolor started to leak into the stitching of the sketchbook. I tried sopping it up with a dry paintbrush, but it did transfer into some of the other spreads, unfortunately. I ended up painting for about 25 minutes, and I think this was a good amount of time to start off with. It was enough time to kind of get lost in the painting, but not so much time that I got overwhelmed or more burnt out. It was a perfect warm-up for this process of finding my spark again. The next step for me was getting comfortable with faces again. My favorite thing to draw is characters, so faces are a pretty important aspect of that. I probably could have jumped right into character work in hindsight, but I wanted to make sure I was ready to do so after not drawing characters for 2-ish weeks. I used a mixture of references from Line of Action and Pinterest for this step. This step ended up being so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I was able to get into the groove pretty quickly and enjoyed the process a lot. Next, it's time to use what I learned during the last 2 steps and do what I love. I'm gonna draw a full character illustration. At first I was just going to copy this pose I found on Pinterest, but I've been wanting to get better at creating more poses from imagination, so I used it instead as inspiration and began to flesh out a pose I liked. Because I was now thinking outside the box a bit more, I started to think of stories for this character. Who is she? Why is she holding a sword in the air like this? What is she about to pierce? And the answers to those questions came in a light bulb moment. I wanted to draw her holding her lover about to pierce her heart in Minecraft. Gayness wins. Love wins. I can't help but draw something gay, I'm sorry. As I was drawing this piece, I felt the thing we've been looking for the whole video. My spark. I was enjoying creating so much. So much so that I could barely sleep the night I started it. I couldn't wait to get to the next morning to work on it some more. Something I'm really excited about is how easily this pose came to me. I usually rely pretty heavily on reference pictures as mentioned previously. Using reference is great, but can be limiting. I'm also usually bad at making characters interact, so I'm pretty proud of my success this time around. Usually, my favorite part of a piece is rendering, and my least favorite is figuring out the pose, but this time, these switched. Now, I didn't dislike rendering this piece, I just enjoyed the sketching phase and figuring out the pose so much more, at least this time around. I couldn't tell you why this happened, but I'm glad it did. Here's the final piece, y'all. My first fully finished piece in around 3 weeks, as I don't count the last pieces I made during June. Those were rushed and not made to their full potential at all. So here it is. I spent about 3.5 hours total on this piece, and it's not perfect, but I'm happy with it nonetheless. Okay. So that was my journey in rediscovering my spark. I know some of these ideas might not work for you, but this is what worked for me. But I hope I give you something to go home with today. Go home with? This is your homework. Go work on art. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And a big thank you to my one patron supporter over on Patreon. Rattleless, you rock. And I'll see you guys in the next one.